Welcome everyone to Healing Wednesdays of the Circle of 12, and of course, happy holidays. I'm Lee Carroll.
And I'm Monika Muranyi.
Well, this is Healing Wednesday, and every Wednesday evening we come together with special guests, questions and answers, discussions, meditations, and of course, channeling. This is our once-a-month free program, and we so appreciate all of you YouTube subscribers and all of those of you who are joining us for the first time anywhere on the planet. Special welcome also to Healing Wednesday members who receive one of these programs every week of the year. Every single week we're here on a Wednesday evening. If you're not a member and you follow the Circle of 12 anyway, as a free member, as one who wants to see it for free, thank you for that, and being a YouTube subscriber. So if that's the case, this is your 16th program, and you can see all of the others on the YouTube channel as replays. Well, if you're a member, however, think about this. This is program number 61. So even new members, if you want to join, receive access to every Healing Wednesday program we have ever done, and the library is building all the time.
Now, for our members, there's a comprehensive index to find the speakers, channeling subjects, and the Circle of 12 experiences for every program that we have in our library. If you're not a member, but you would love to be, of course, we would love to welcome you to our community. It's very easy to subscribe. Cryonmasters.com. Now, question. Are you a Spanish language speaker? ¿Habla español? This show is also available in Spanish, and it will begin in about 30 minutes. Este programa es en español también, comenzar en 30 minutos más. And you can find that on our Spanish YouTube channel, and that is Kryon Lee Carroll Español. Now, if streaming is poor in your area, don't worry, because your replay will be available both on YouTube and in your membership portal. We'll upload that very soon after the live stream, and they will stay uploaded in that area. We do not remove them at all after an amount of time. So one of the things Lee and I enjoy doing is taking questions from our beautiful light workers that are on the planet tuning into this program. This question comes from Janet. Janet is in Virginia in the US. Could you please say more about compassionate action? I feel very drawn to this practice. When I hear the word action, I think of a physical action such as donating money, volunteering, or offering a kind word. But I think Kryon means something different related to consciousness. Can you please expand? Great question, Lee. Compassionate action. True light worker to be asking that question.
I agree. Well, Janet, you're correct. It's a little bit like you said, but there are some differences, and it's a kind of action that is, what I want to do is to tell you where you can see the various kinds of actions that actually Kryon talks about. There's a recent channel series about compassion where Kryon discussed what this actually meant, and as well as the other kinds of compassion. And you can find these on Kryon.com, free audio. It's on my site. They are free. They're audios, just like it says. But look for February 2021 channelings. And it's a series, then, of 4 channelings where Kryon talks about the various kinds of compassion. And compassionate action is one of them. I want to tell you a story that's going to really give you, I think, an example of this. It'll show the difference between the various types of compassion, but specifically compassionate action. And it's a story when I was 14 years old, and I was taken on a trip with my sister, who was 10 years older. And I was just coming out into teenage years and all of that, and it was an evening and at night, and she actually had picked me up. I had come in the airport, and she'd picked me up. I'd flown alone. And we were traveling to a hotel, and we were excited to be whatever destination that was. And I was with my sister, and I was enjoying myself. And we came across a traffic accident. And that traffic accident was horrendous. And I remember this all my life. It's the first one I had seen. And we, unfortunately, had arrived before the police. And that meant that nothing was roped off and everything was visible. And someone had died. And not that we could see them, but I saw very clearly a woman who was sitting on the curb sobbing. Whew. Just remembering it now. And realized that she'd lost somebody. And it hit me like a brick. 14 years old, and I think for the first time I had ever seen anything like that. And I was crying, and I started to have compassion for this lady. My sister saw this, and she didn't really understand, whether I was just upset with the accident or whether I was feeling compassion or whatever, but I'll never forget this. We drove about 2 blocks when we got past the traffic in the accident, and she pulled over. And she looked at me and she says, "Let's do something about this." And I said, "What would that be?" Well, my sister, good Christian girl, and remained that way all her life. And she said, "We're going to pray." And she took my hand, and we prayed for the lady, and we prayed for her peace, and we prayed that she would have some kind of solace and get through this fast, and that it might have an outcome she didn't expect. All the things we teach today, that is compassionate action. It's a difference from simply feeling compassion for someone or donating or whatever, where you involve yourself in a personal way to help somebody that you see is in need. So you can see this compassion is accompanied by some kind of like personal action on your own, and that we'll then call compassionate action. Sometimes when I hear about something that creates compassion in my heart, I'm always looking for something I can do, since I believe that consciousness is energy, and we can send light and love.
I love that phrase, consciousness is energy, and all of us, I feel, have benefited from that beautiful explanation, Lee. Thank you. So let's move to another question. This is Telly from Sydney, Australia. Telly is saying, "I am doing my best to stay in a cheerful and grateful state of mind, but repetitive and negative thoughts are always popping up. I have difficulty getting rid of them." Oh my goodness. I think I chose this because
Yeah, you did.
It's tough when you want to be so on the spiritual path and yet you have these negative thoughts coming in and popping up, and it really breaks up your peace.
You'll tell you're not alone in this. It's just what Monica said. I think we can honestly say that all of us have the issue depending upon the circumstances, of course, of our lives. I think it's first of all a reminder that we're all human. And the duality of the old energy on this planet that we've all slogged through even to get here, it's still there. And it's what we grew up with, of course. You can't just wipe it away because you want to be positive. So for me, I started being more cognizant of when this happened, because it happened to me too, of course. It happens to everybody, Telly. And when it did, I always had a phrase or something or an exercise that reminded me that it was actually a habit of the old energy. So the negative thoughts come in and I realize, well, here it is again. Most of the negative thoughts, for me anyway, about expectations, okay, nothing good will happen, or here it is again, or I'll never be able to do this or that. For most of us, they're self-worth issues, but they're negative thoughts. Other thoughts, of course, just negative thoughts, anger. At whatever. You're yelling at the television set or the things that are in front of you. It's common. So when that started happening and I realized I was slipping into those habits, I developed phrases to immediately draw me back to the love and the joy that I believe is our native state. When you exercise a muscle, as you know, it becomes stronger. And this is the same process. Slowly, I was able to catch myself and turn these things around so that these thoughts didn't occur near as often. Or when they did, I was able to, as I say, stop them, turn around, and not let it be full-blown into a negative scenario. What I'm saying to you is that we have to work at it. I had to work at it. You have to work at it. We all do. And catch it before it brings you into a full negative state. I know it sounds simple. For some people, it just sounds too simple, but this is what so many are teaching. Affirmations, they work. Phrases, they work. It's about getting out of the habits of letting negative thoughts in. Innate hears you, spirit hears you, your whole body hears you when you start to correct yourself. The other is a constant reminder that negativity is not our natural state. We're born magnificent, and love is our natural state.
I love that. Love is our natural state. Lee, if it's okay, I want to just share 2 books that I've recently had come into my world, and both of them I feel are very helpful for that exact question. One of those books is called Magic Words and How to Use Them. The author is Genevieve Davis, and it's such a simple book to read. It gives great techniques about the magic words. You can affect those around you just by the choice of words that you use. You can change aspects of your own life just by the choice of words you can use. So, Magic Words and How to Use Them by Genevieve Davis. And the other book that I recently read is called Complaint Free World. What a concept. Don't you just love the title, Complaint Free World? That's by Will Bowen, and he actually gives a physical technique where you have a bracelet on your hand and you catch yourself with the negative phrase and then you move it to the other wrist. And the idea is to go 21 days without swapping the bracelets. We also know that our beautiful colleague Marilyn Harper and Adironda, they have that same concept as well, where you can work with Joy and Marilyn because they do an exercise of changing the bracelet as well. So we're going to do one more question before we do a meditation channel. This comes from Gabby. Gabby is in Canberra, Australia. She's asking, what's the difference between frequency and vibration? Good question. The difference between frequency and vibration.
Well,
I know this feeds your nerd
I know.
self, so that's why I'm asking.
But you know,
it.
she's really asking a good question because one is scientific and one is metaphysical.
Yes.
Because of the way we use them. Gabby, this will be a short answer, but you're not the only one who's asked this. Remember, I'm an engineer. I still am an engineer, even though I'm a channeler too. I didn't throw that all away. So I go to the linear stuff first. Vibration. What is it? It's a term that refers to the oscillation of anything, of atoms in particular. So you could say something is vibrating, and it means it's moving back and forth very, very quickly. That would be a vibration. Frequency, then, is how quickly it moves back and forth, or the rate at which it's vibrating, quick, fast, slow. But let's look at how we use it esoterically. Because we often say, as metaphysical people, light workers, something is vibrating in a very high rate, or the Earth's frequency, for instance, becoming higher. That's really a metaphysical talk, and it's all jargon that we use that actually means the same thing. It's referring to an awakening planet or anything that's getting better. So sometimes we say something has raised its vibration, same thing. So just think of it as the same thing, same word, it's just in different ways, and it's mostly metaphysical talk.
Well, Lee, I feel very inspired from those questions that talked about compassionate action, changing negative thoughts, and raising frequency and vibration. So with that as our theme, let's move into a brief meditation before the Kryon channel. And so I invite you to close your eyes and begin to slow your breathing and become into a deeper state of breathing where you're breathing into your belly and slowing your breaths, breathing in slowly and out slowly. And in this brief meditation, I invite you to have compassion for yourself. We're always wanting to send compassion to others. It's automatic. That's what light workers do. That's what old souls do. We have so much compassion for others. And yet let's begin by generating compassion within ourself first. And perhaps there will be times when you have negative thoughts come in. That's okay. Are you able to have compassion for yourself? And think about everything that makes up the totality of you, this current expression that you are experiencing. How many times have you had an expression of life on the planet? For some, it's many hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes. Think about the compassion you can have for all the other lives you have experienced on the planet. Every life before this one has been contributing to the current frequency and vibration that you are in right now. There is a well of knowledge and experience that you have developed. And as we begin to have more compassion we generate for ourselves, it allows us to have greater compassion for those around us. And so in this state of beautiful compassion that we have, let us now invite the loving messages from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Dear ones, one of the most profound processes, systems, whatever you want to call it, that human beings share together all over the planet is something you're going to call reincarnation. This begins a 4-lesson series on reincarnation. This is the first of the 4. The other 3 are available to everyone, and they're on my partner's website where you can find them all, and they will be posted eventually for all to see. In these 4 lessons, we're going to give you the attributes of reincarnation. Some of you have heard this, some of you have not. Some of them are controversial because you believe you know the way it works. We're going to say it yet again in other lessons in the series, and that is this: things change as you change. As this planet ascends in so many ways, as there's more light in so many ways, it gives you a new toolkit, if you want to say, of your soul. You have one soul and half for eternity. And that one soul has expressions that come to the earth, human beings, past lives. That's reincarnation. We'll say it yet again, because we always give a review, but let me tell you that this particular process was the first one to think, to be intuitive. To those who would have any kind of belief systems or beliefs at all on the planet, you come and you go, you come and you go. It's even present in many of the indigenists and their beliefs. There are more people on the planet right now who believe in this particular system than not, in case you wondered about that. It is a beautiful system, and I'm going to even rename reincarnation a system of family. If you get nothing else from this discussion, I want you to understand it's done in love. This is not a random system. There are so many who would wonder, well, what happens when you go to the other side in this planning session or whatever it is that happens and you come back? Is someone up there rolling the dice to figure out where you'll be? Or is there some kind of a system where what you didn't experience, you must experience? Or what you didn't learn, you have to come back and relearn or relearn? In other words, is it a punishment system? You got that from those systems today who have God punishing you because you didn't do something right. It is not a punishing system. It's a love system. Here is the whole premise, dear ones. You're in a school of energy, of light and dark. You come into the planet in the best way possible, in the most loving, comfortable way possible, in order to continue the school. On this planet, there is a reincarnate system. But there are other systems from other planets that you have been. But this one that we talk about in these 4 lessons are for you on this planet. We'll even tell you about the cave of creation. That comes later. We'll tell you where your crystal is stored. That comes later. We'll tell you that it's unique to this planet. Your past life energy is part of Earth. And when you pass to the other side, the next incarnate, the next expression is planned by you and others around you for comfort. In other words, so you'll come back in and either continue what you were doing, or you'll be learning a lesson, perhaps, that would be the next one for you. And the whole purpose of it is so that lesson after lesson and expression after expression, you can then develop a higher consciousness through learning. Figure a big school of some kind where you come and go and you move to different awarenesses and different grades when you come back because that's what you need. You may have accelerated in the first incarnation you had to a level where you'll come in many grades higher than another one would come in because you've learned things. You've been perhaps to a culture that was more comfortable and you learned from them. You perhaps were in a culture that knew nothing and you still had to come and learn with them. I'm going to give you a couple of attributes, both of them controversial. And I'm doing it because these are the ones that I have told many crowds over the years that you don't expect, that may surprise you. And it's not the minutiae at all of reincarnation. These are some revelations of reincarnation. Revelations. Things that you'll go, what? Really? And some will say, I don't believe it. Some may even think that it's controversial, what I'm about to tell you. But we're going to start here. What would be the most comfortable thing that Spirit could give to you when you reincarnate? What's the most comfortable thing as you arrive back into this world? And that would be to be the same gender. Think about it. Whatever gender you are, whatever, I guarantee, as you look, perhaps, at when you're going to come back, you don't want to be the other gender. That's most of you. You're comfortable in your body, thinking the way you think with the gender that you have, and you're used to it, especially those who have been here many, many times. So the idea that perhaps there's a random system of changing genders is not so. It isn't so. This is for family. This is for you out of love. So here is the system. This is one of 2 things I want to tell you about reincarnation before we give you any of the timing or any of those things coming in the other lessons. Number 1, in the gender situation, you come in the same gender over and over and over and over and over until it's time to change. In other words, you don't just go from one to the other. This makes it not only comfortable in your body, but it assists your consciousness learning. You're not here to learn about another gender. When you come into another gender, you'll have the idea, of course, of sharing and knowing and being, and the knowledge of what it will be like, and then you'll stay in that gender over and over and over and over. Old soul, you have been both genders. But usually the lifetimes that you live, many of them, 10, 15, maybe more, one gender. But here is the information you should hear that many don't want to hear because of the stigmas of your culture, because of misinformation, because of what you've been told. When you make the switch from one gender to another, there often are 2 or 3 genders, 2 or 3 lifetimes expressions where you still carry attributes of the other gender. So you may go through 15 lifetimes as one gender, and then you change, and there are 2 to 3 expressions of you coming and going on this planet where you have attributes of both. Does that make sense to you? Because this carries from lifetime to lifetime, this past life experience. And in those 2 or 3 years, there's an expression people have. You're gay. You like it so far? It is absolutely, totally, completely normal. Up to 10% of this planet is always in that condition of gender shift. Beautiful. It is. Normal. It is. And it means that absolutely every old soul I'm talking to who has been here lifetime after lifetime has had this experience. You've all been gay. And there will be those who will shake their head because they're still in an old energy concept of what they were told or don't like that. That's the way it works. I'll give you another one. And this one is the most positive I could ever give you about what's going on this planet right now that has everything to do with your next expression. Old souls in particular who are going through this shift, if I ask you right now, would you like to come back? Most of you will say, no, I'm not coming back. They'll say, I've done it, not coming back. Here's what I'd like to tell you. Yes, you are. But more than that, why? Energy has shifted so much on this planet since 2012 and even before that, that old souls in particular have gained what we will call, and tell you about even later, a new toolkit. Things are different when you return because the earth is different. This is so difficult for some to understand because they're stuck in an old idea of what karma is, what this is all about, what reincarnation truly is. And here's the information. In this new energy, dear ones, when you return and you're born, and you start to grow up, are you ready? You will carry in with you what you learned so far on this planet. You ready for that? You never have to go through the same problems again. The energy is so much higher, believe it or not, and light is starting to occur, believe it or not, so that when you return, young again, you never have to make the same mistakes. Whether it's in love and relationships, jobs, whatever, you never have to because you will be aware, you will know. Can you imagine the acceleration of your growth spiritually without having to go through these issues? That's a promise. Does that change anything when I say, do you want to come back? You become a super soul, if you want to call it that. Now there's another super soul coming, and I'll tell you that in the 4th lesson that's completely and totally apart from that. But you are a soul who hits the ground running, and that is to say that you don't have to relearn anything. It all sticks. That's new. You needed to hear that today. And that, my dear ones, is a system of love and family. Blessed are those human beings who go through this willingly, knowingly, and come back with so much to offer this planet. and so it is.
And as we transition from that beautiful space we were in with Kryon, gently bring your awareness back into your body. If you've had your eyes closed, you may open your eyes. Perhaps focus your attention on the energy of your feet. Feel yourself connecting in with the energy of the earth. And allow that grounding connection to really bring you back to be fully present within your body. And the reason we want you fully present in your body is because our next guest has some amazing information that's directly connected to the beautiful equipment that we arrive with our body. And her name is Jaiya, and I want to make sure Jaiya's there. Jaiya, are you there?
I'm here. Such a pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. We want to tell everyone about Jaiya and why I feel this is so important for our own awareness of our magnificent body.
Well, here we are again, folks, giving you some insights into one of the most beautiful things all of us humans do, and one of the most culturally, I would say, misunderstood. In my culture, sex is a taboo subject. Don't talk about it. Do it in the dark. Even though it creates life, joy, helps cement love between individuals, there's so much there. Kryon, has repeatedly told us that it was created in love, for love. It's natural. It's beautiful. But even talking about it in my culture often becomes extremely controversial, especially in spiritual groups or even in health groups. So let's see if tonight perhaps we can break some of those cultural barriers with some knowledge. Jaiya is an internationally recognized award-winning sexologist and best-selling author. She's a creator of the Erotic Blueprint Breakthrough and the Erotic Blueprint Quiz. She's also the author of 4 books, including the best-selling one called Red Hot Touch. I want to tell you what she says. I believe, she says, that sex isn't just something we do. Sex is essential to our health, our vitality, and vibrant aliveness.
Jaiya's mission is to help people claim their desires and gain access to erotic ecstasy. Sex techniques don't create lasting passion and sexual satisfaction. In fact, using the wrong technique on the wrong person can create turn-off, shutdown, and possibly even traumatic response. So what is the answer? How do you keep the fire alive and experience sexual fulfillment?
Through client observation and clinical research, she's discovered we all have something called a unique erotic blueprint. So let's uncover your map to ecstasy and experience that very own erotic blueprint breakthrough. Now, there's something else.
Yes, I think what will be very helpful is many have experienced sexual trauma, and I can actually feel in the field right now that for some of you, there's even a clenching and a tightening of your body. This doesn't need to be that way. And so Jaiya has worked with those who carry sexual traumas. So Jaiya, I would love for you to begin by sharing with us how we can move beyond those traumas and then open up to our creative life force.
I love that question, and I love this opening and this idea of pleasure and sexuality being something that helps us in our vitality and our aliveness and our wellness. And I really feel like part of my mission is shifting that. We are living in a culture that traumatizes around sex. I don't think that we escape the trauma. I think all of us have some aspect just because we live in such a sex-negative culture that doesn't understand what sex actually is. So I'm going to start with the definition of sex and just kind of expanding our minds about that, because it isn't just a procreative act. every cell in our body is wired for pleasure. And I don't think that that's not on purpose. I think on purpose we are wired for pleasure, that our bodies are wired for pleasure. But because we have had a rift from ourselves, a rift from love of ourselves and respect of ourselves, and a rift from what sexuality actually is and what sex can do for ourselves, we have trauma. And we have trauma because the medical community is afraid of pleasure. We have trauma because the education that we grow up with is afraid of pleasure. I ask audiences all over the world, did you get a positive sex education? And I might get one hand that goes up, but the majority of people did get a sex education. It's just that their sex education was negative messaging about their body, negative messaging about who they are, negative messaging about what sex is. And so this is part of that unraveling. And speaking directly to your question around trauma, that's a journey, that journey to healing. And I'm not a trauma therapist, but I work with a lot of sexual trauma. Everyone who comes to see me has some kind of trauma in their history, be it something that their parents said to them when they were young, all the way to more severe trauma, victims of abuse, victims of trafficking that have come into my practice. And so it begins with breath. I think a lot of us, even maybe now as we're talking about this topic, you mentioned people's bodies tensing, that we all just take a breath together, that we can be in this conversation together. And even grounding your feet on the floor, little things like that as we even talk about this topic. And the healing begins with being able to be with what arises as you think about sex, or as you think about maybe something that happened in your history, that you can breathe with it, that you can be with it, that you have grounding techniques, that you have people who can help you, that you work with someone who can be there to hold you and help you rewire. I really believe that the trauma lives not just in our psyche, but also in our bodies. And I'm always looking at 4 elements when it comes to sexual wellness. What's happening in the energetic field and in the field around you. And we're bioenergetic before we're biophysical. So I'm looking at the bioenergetics of the system. And then we're looking at the physical body. Is the body gripping? Is there still something there from the trauma that's being held in the body? I'm looking at the emotions. What emotions arise as the trauma may surface, or as you're being with that? What emotion comes up when you think about having sex or sexual interaction? And then the last piece is looking at the biochemistry. So what's actually happening in the hormonal system in the body? And once we get those 4 things in a healthful place, we are now in sexual wellness. We are now in sexual vitality. And from there, we start to play. And that's when we start to look at the erotic blueprints and the different types.
I am so fascinated with your erotic blueprint. And what can you tell us about erotic blueprints? And I know you have 5 different types of erotic blueprints. So please share that with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. So the 5 types, the first one is an energetic. And I assume that a lot of people in your audience would be energetics. And so energetics are people who love space, tease, anticipation. Their sexuality may not necessarily be so physical. So when someone goes to touch and collapses the energy, it may feel like too much. Their system may go in overwhelm, especially if there's been trauma in the history. But out here, somewhere out here, playing in the field, that's where their orgasmic capacity may live. And they can go into non-ordinary states of consciousness very easily, have out-of-body orgasms, multidimensional orgasms, making love to the divine. So if you find that your eroticism lives in that soul level or in the level of divinity, you may be an energetic. The shadow side of the energetic, however, can be that they judge harshly sex in the physical, judging a partner who may not be on the same page as them, or feeling like everything's too much too quick, so they kind of short circuit and dissociate from their body and being in their body during the sexual encounter. So there's a difference between, I just want to clarify, dissociation, where you kind of just, I can't take it, it's too much, so I go out of my body, I float out, which is a trauma response, and having a out of body orgasmic experience. That's a very different experience. And then there's the sensual, that's the second type. And the sensual is someone who loves closeness. So where the energetic loves all this space and non-physical eroticism, the sensual is more about this contouring, sexy touch that feels like it's body to body. It doesn't necessarily get super genital focused with the sensual, but can be included in that. So it's this full body experience of pleasure and all of the senses being ignited. So the taste of something delicious chocolate, or a beautiful piece of music that just inspires your body, or it's slow dancing with your lover, or it's seeing something so beautiful that ignites turn on in you. So all of those senses make the eroticism delicious. However, the shadow side can be getting caught up in your head, where you're not able to really be in your body because you're thinking about, oh, I forgot to do that thing, or oh, I didn't call that person back, or here's my to-do list. You're running through your to-do list instead of actually enjoying the present moment with your lover or with yourself, with your own body. Any of this, when I talk about eroticism, it has to be partnered. We can have our own eroticism. And I think that's a really important thing, is who am I in my own self as an erotic being? And I think that's part of the beauty of the erotic blueprints, is it starts to have us discover, well, who am I? I'm not what the culture says. I'm not what the conditioning and the programming of our culture tells me I should be based on gender or based on identity. But it's really, who am I? And I'm going to discover myself, because my eroticism starts with me. So the third one is the sexual, and the sexual is what we think of as sex in the culture. And the sexual is someone who's turned on by orgasm, by nudity, by penetration, by what we think of. And when we think of the definition of sex, we think oftentimes of intercourse. And the shadow side of the sexual is that they often think that because someone would say an energetic or a sensual, there must be something wrong with everyone else because they don't fit into the dominant norm. But the sexual, the beauty of them is that they can find arousal very quickly. They love sexuality. So there's a celebration of sexuality. They don't lack depth, but they love, it's simple. It's like, well, yeah, sex is this. It's like great pizza. Like who wouldn't want that all the time? And so for a sexual, they use sex to relax, and everything feels right in the world when it's happening. Whereas like a sensual needs to relax first. They want the massage and the candles and the connection and the romance before they go into the sexual experience. So it's very interesting to see how the different blueprints interplay. And then the fourth one is a kinky, and kinky is someone who's turned on by what is taboo, in the taboo edges and going into the taboo places. There are people who are more psychological kinky and people who are more sensation-based kinky. And what this might look like if you're psychological based would be like role play, or playing a game where one person's in control and the other person is surrendering control or power over to that person. And in that play, that can also be really beautiful. And I think we need to redefine what that looks like. Because I think a lot of people hear kink and they think something dark. And I also think that we need to integrate those dark aspects of our sexuality and our desires. There are these polarities that show up between sex and love, or darker desires or lighter desires of love and beauty. And when we start to integrate this, we move into more of a unity consciousness and more of oneness consciousness with this. And I see this a lot in kink, where people are able to get more present. And when they integrate those darker elements or those taboo elements or things that they've shamed, they start to move into a different state of consciousness, which is really interesting to me. In kink, the shadow side is shame, deep, deep shame for the things that we desire. And my own partner was in this category, and I'm a sexologist, and he had a really hard time talking to me about some of his desires, even though I do this for a living. So I can't even imagine what it's like to be with somebody where you don't feel safe with your partner to start to talk about some of these things. And then the last one's the shapeshifter, and the shapeshifter is someone who's turned on by all of it. So if you heard yourself in all of this, then you might be a shapeshifter. And so they love to mold and shapeshift themselves into what the moment's calling for. So if you have a partner and you're a shapeshifter, you will often mold yourself to be what your partner is. The shadow side of that, however, is that you're often not pleased in all the variety that you love and the huge capacity that you have for pleasure. I've seen shapeshifters like 3 hours later, I'm like, are you good? Did you have enough? No. Like they just love, they have this uptake for pleasure, this capacity for pleasure that keeps expanding. And so when I'm working with an energetic, I'm often trying to help them. I am helping them to expand into more capacity like a shapeshifter has, because part of the problem with an energetic is they feel so much that they kind of pop out because it's overwhelming in their system. So how can we increase capacity? So if you're a person who's with a shapeshifter and they've got all this capacity and you're an energetic, then that's a way that we can start to bridge the gap, because it isn't that people are incompatible. If you hear that you and your partner might be a different blueprint, you're not doomed. There isn't an incompatibility issue. It's just simply skill set. And this is a learning and helping your body to learn and to expand into these places.
That's such a beautiful description of the different types, and I already sense there are many who are watching this that are having some personal insights for their own body type. I'd like to ask then, now that we have people tuning in and going, oh my goodness, I totally relate to that blueprint, what then?
Yeah, so the first thing is really knowing who you are. So we start to uncover that if you've heard me talking and you're like, oh, I think I might be an energetic. So the mind tells us one thing, and you can also go take the quiz. That's another way. But I invite you, if you go take the quiz, to really feel each question and feel how your body responds to the responses, because that's the next key is, okay, well, how does my body respond? And to start to map out your body. And a very simple way to do this is just to go through the body with different kinds of touch, from energy touch, where you're barely touching, to more sensual touch, and just playing with different kinds of sensations and seeing, what does your body say? Because our mind may still have all the conditioning programming and is answering from that place, but then the body has a different truth. And so we start to uncover more and more of who we are. And so once you know your blueprint, then the next step is to feed it, to actually feed that part of you that maybe you've been neglecting because you didn't know you were an energetic. Nobody taught you that you were essential, or it wasn't safe for you to really express your desires and who you are. So feeding your blueprint. And then after that, speaking it. So what's the language of the blueprint? And it's not just about the words, but you may even notice me as I move my body a lot as I'm going through the different blueprints, like when I'm energetic versus when I'm sensual. So what is the language of the blueprint, and learning to speak each other's blueprints if you're in relationship. And then healing. So what are the shadow aspects of the blueprint that are putting the brakes on your pleasure and putting your brakes on your aliveness and your wellness and your vitality in the area of sexuality? And so those things I actually talked about at the beginning may lie in those 4 elements of bioenergetics, biochemistry, the physical or the emotional realms, and really looking to go on a healing journey around your sexuality. And then the final piece is expanding. If anything, our blueprints show us where we're limited. And I believe that underneath we're all shapeshifters. And I don't have any research to back that up, just my clinical practice over the last 25 plus years to see that what eventually starts to happen is people heal and they open up and they get free in this expression of sexuality. Another thing that I say frequently is sexuality is oftentimes the final frontier of our personal and spiritual growth, because it's the place where we're least likely to look and we're most afraid to go into. Mm-hmm. And so this growth that happens as people really learn, I know myself, I'm going to own who I am now, my authentic self, my true self. And then from that, I can live a life of pleasure and live a life of authenticity. And that living is a life of vitality and aliveness and pleasure and such ownership of who you are that everything changes.
I think all you said, I'd like to tell those who often will switch off a sex subject because I don't have a partner in my life, or I'm a senior where I don't even want to know about sex. All the things you have talked about isn't about an intimate act with another person. Mm-hmm. It really is truly understanding who you are, your blueprint. And I love that you said we are built for pleasure. If there's one thing that you would like our viewers to know when it comes to love, connection, and pleasure, what would that be?
I love this at any age. It doesn't matter what age you are, what gender you are, if you're in a relationship, if you're not in a relationship. Sexuality is you. It's part of you. It's part of what it means to be a human being on this planet. And be in celebration of this gift that you have, that is a body, that we are in, these divine beings that are playing in bodies, and that you get to have your own relationship for a lifetime with that. And so little things like practicing pleasure. What brings you pleasure today? Is it shampooing your hair in the shower? Is it a meditation that you have? Is it connecting with nature? That this is life force, that sex is life. And to me, this is all an orgasmic experience, this life that we're in. Everything is pleasure. Everything can become orgasmic. It is about that acceptance of self and acceptance of what is. And that I think underneath it all, we really truly are ecstatic, joyful, loving beings. And once you can accept that love for yourself, that's it. I mean, to me, my front door says sex, but behind it, it's unconditional love for you, from you, because love loves loving itself. And so sex is just one expression of how we love ourselves, and it can look so many different ways. It could be the sunlight on your skin, and you feel that orgasmic pleasure and that orgasmic bliss. No partner required, no age required, doesn't matter. Any of us can have that experience.
You know, one of the things that in my former life before Kryon and all, recording studio engineer, I used to see the musicians would gather around and listen to certain kinds of music, and I saw that. I saw that in spades, as they say. And it's one of the only industries where they would go to each other's gigs, and there was no competition, and they would sit and just go into this ecstasy, no partner involved, none of these things. And music can do this, I think. And where does that fit in your erotic blueprint? Would be the first one?
Energetic or sensual is music. So energetics can feel the vibration. I have a dear friend of mine who's a vocal coach. His name is Christian Demel. And he talks about anytime we're speaking, anytime we are singing, we're making music, we're vibrating each other. And I love this because this is so energetic to me. I'm primarily energetic, and this idea of vibrating each other to me is such an erotic idea, such an orgasmic idea. And then the sensual, it's the sound of the music. It's the way that the music affects the body in movement, in dance, in the pleasure of hearing and listening to the beauty of the music. And so sensual and energetic have a little bit different flavors, but absolutely, I mean, I can listen to a great piece of music and feel ecstasy, feel ecstatic, feel connection with God, like this connection of like music is God. For some people, for musicians, I hear musicians talk about this often, having a spiritual experience with music.
Beautiful. Well, if there's things that you are resonating here, go and have a look at the website. It's theblueprintbreakthrough.com. And Jaiya, is that where people can do the erotic blueprint quiz?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go there. There's two different forms of the quiz. There's one that's a free version that you can do, that's a shorter version. And then we have a more in-depth one that you can take that will give you a report based on your blueprint and then how it responds with other blueprints.
And is the majority of your work one-on-one with clients, or are you doing workshops? I mean, it's such a deeply intimate subject. I'd just love to hear how you explore it.
Yeah, how I work is all different ways. So we have everything from online courses, we have live events. I also do have a private practice. It's quite busy right now. I have a waiting list for a year at least. So, I'm so fortunate to be in that position. But I think that something's happening in our culture and in the field where people are really craving this journey of sexual aliveness, of sexual awakening. And so I've just seen a lot more people, a lot more interest happening. We've been really flooded with people coming in.
This is a healing program. How would you address that?
Yeah. I have a belief that our healing does involve our sexuality, and that wellness has to include it. That if you're ignoring this part of yourself, if you're ignoring how your pelvic floor works, just on a physical level, if you're ignoring your sexual aliveness or what's possible around sexuality. And I'm not saying anyone's broken. I think that that's a really important thing for people to hear as they're on the healing journey. You are whole and complete and perfect just the way that you are. And I think a lot of people walk around the world thinking that they're sexually broken, thinking there's something wrong with them, thinking that they're not normal. And so the healing journey, if you come from a place of wholeness, and then you can look at, okay, well, where in my sexuality have I disowned something? Where am I not in acceptance? What could I do with my pelvic floor at any age? And I have clients who are, in their 70s and they're just starting this journey and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know these things were possible in my body. I didn't know. And so I work with prostate. I work with people who've had childbirth and they have scar tissue really badly and have pain. So if you're having pain, doctors and professionals oftentimes don't know how to address that. I actually had one client, I did a research project and we surveyed women postpartum. We had over 500 women we surveyed, and one of them said, my doctor just gave me numbing cream. And I have nothing against the medical professional. It's just that they're not necessarily trained in how to work with some of these things. And so well, what's the point of having sex if you just have numbing cream on? How do we instead work with the pain? How do we instead work with what's actually going on there? I also have a dear friend, Esther Perel, and she says, we have to have sex worth wanting. So on the health tip, if you're having pain, if you're having sex that doesn't feel good for you, it's time to heal those parts that either have you afraid to speak up and say no, or say we need to have a change and have a conversation about that, or heal the physical aspects that are going on or the biochemical aspects, as I've been discussing. And then there's all the health benefits to sex and orgasm. I mean, our sex hormones are our youth hormones. There's the spiritual connection that can come from sexuality. I mean, for me, it has been my spiritual practice most of my life. When I was very young, my pleasure was about my connection to the divine. And so there are those aspects that also keep us healthy. There's so much research you can look up online. Just start to look up some of the research on things like immune system and immune function and orgasm and being in pleasure and how that fuels us. I really think pleasure is fuel. And when we stop having pleasure and we let our sexuality die, there's an aliveness inside of us that goes away. There's a light that goes out.
I think that's so beautiful to have that connection between pleasure and the divine. There are many cultures that deny pleasure or have guilt and shame around it. So this is such a beautiful opening to the love connection that Source wants us to experience.
So many pearls of wisdom here that because as we talked before the show, it's just not talked about, and especially the health part of it, and everything he has said is just, for many people, is absolutely brand new, because they're not going to talk to anybody about it. And so here you are. And it's so great to have you. So great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really delightful, and I feel super connected to everyone. So I just want to leave you all with just loving yourselves, and no matter where you're at on this journey, you are whole and complete and perfect just the way you are in your growth.
How beautiful.
Thank you.
What a lovely way to finish out this section of the program. Please, everyone, take a 10-minute break and we'll see you back for the Circle of 12. Welcome back from the break, everyone. I hope you all got something out of that beautiful conversation we had with Jaiya. Didn't that expand even what we already
To
knew?
me, it's very impactful.
Yeah.
And as again, you know, for such a taboo subject in our culture, it just really lays it out so maturely and so well about just how important these things are for our life.
Yes, and
Yeah.
her parting message was
Oh,
so
that was great.
heartfelt and
Right. It's
really
a healing energy, folks.
Yeah, really important, really important. So speaking of healing energies, this is where we now go into our Circle of 12 experience. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Welcome to you experiencing more of who you truly are. And for those joining us, again, you've already know what this magical experience involves. It involves you working with you. You may even say that it's a discovery of the many yous that exist. We had a beautiful message from Kryon earlier about the system of reincarnation. And if that is truly possible, who have you been? What is it you've gone through? What are those experiences that you potentially still carry in this life? Perhaps those fears and anxieties and worries you have come from a past life expression. How would that feel to be able to dismiss that? What would that be like for you? Perhaps there's some hidden skills and abilities you have from a past life expression. What would that mean to you today in this life? These are all wonderful things to think about. And you may have other things that I haven't mentioned that you're contemplating. However, Kryon knows exactly who is here. Kryon knows exactly who is watching and listening and participating in this experience. And so with that beautiful energy coming across the veil, let us now connect in with Kryon and the wisdom that is going to be shared with us now.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon. Come a little closer. There are so many things to be said about the energies that almost every single one of you carry, that came not from this life, but from one you've lived before. This entire month, we speak of reincarnation. We talk about the things that are important, the things if you've known, the things that perhaps you did not, the system itself that's based in love. Not a process, not something that is random, but something that's carefully designed for each and every single one of you. But dear ones, things change, and we mentioned this earlier in the channel. We'll say it yet again, just for emphasis during the lessons. There are those who still will say that the processes, if you wish to call it that, of spirit, the things that are energetic and the way things work with spirit will always work the same way because God is the same forever. We repeat it so that all of you can hear it if you've never heard it before. That statement is absolutely true, dear ones. The same forever. God is love. But what has changed and what can change is you, and especially the energy on the planet and how it affects these systems. We've told you many times some of the new tools that you have as light workers and what it means to you now that has changed over the years, especially these last few years since the shift. Reincarnation is one of those processes, one of those systems that has changed because of that. You continue to come and go. It's indeed still a school of energy. But what has changed is what you can do with it, what it means to you, but especially some of the attributes. That's what we dealt with today. Speaking of that which is new, that no one ever told you before, perhaps that you can do now and you could not before. And one of those things we're going to study today. And we're going to take it right to the circle of 12. It is perhaps one of the best things that you will ever experience about your relationship to your past lives today, if you wish. Dimensionality. We speak of it often, we'll speak of it again. We've started telling you that indeed the circle of 12 is a dimensional shift. It's a study in shifting dimensions. The circle of 12 is you going from the dimensionality that you recognize and know and work with into one you don't. And the irony is that the one you don't know is home. It is the one you spend more time than anything else because it represents your soul. Your soul is indeed eternal, dear ones, and just a reminder, this soul of yours is one energy. It's not a thing. It has no measurements, you might say, no quantifiable shape. It just is. It relates to that which you would think about God. It just is. But when you go into this energy, if you really were to sit and realize what was there, it's you. The essence of you is this soul. And this one soul represents every single expression on earth you've ever had. It does not change. Earth is so linear and so singular. And so many of the belief systems from the very beginning, they just echo what's on earth and they apply it to all the heavens and the way everything works, not understanding anything about dimensionality. You get that idea that you come in with a soul and it's just this soul for this earth, and when you leave it doesn't go anywhere, it just gets tortured later. Or perhaps it does go someplace, but it doesn't then come back. Another soul perhaps comes back and it's called you again and you reincarnate. And that's not the way it works. If you start to look at the spiritual logic of it and make sense of it, this school that you're in, this planet, as you go from one level to another and you reincarnate and you come again and you come in and you learn more and you learn more and your consciousness starts to raise, then you start applying it to the planet, then you learn about Gaia, all of these things. It takes one center to do this. You come from one place and continue from that one place, coming and going from one platform, if you want to call it that, a multidimensional thing called your soul. We're going to go there yet again today. But we're going to do something different. In this culture that I'm speaking to you from now, this is a holiday of giving. And in so many cultures, there are times when they stop and give gifts. More than just a celebration perhaps of your birth, but a season that they'll set aside. Sometimes they'll set aside a season and just have lights and dancing and these kinds of things, or special foods. In this culture, it's gift giving. Every child knows what this holiday is about. And so we're going to echo that principle. And we're going to do something. You're going to get a great gift today if you choose. You're going to get a lot of gifts today if you choose. But I want you to cognize their reality. More than an exercise, dear ones. This can be real. This exercise, if you wish to call it that, and if you see it as an exercise, is something that you can imagine, because we're putting it in a linear fashion. We have done this now 2 other times, never in a circle of 12, in front of a group. The circle of 12 that we give you now is the one that we present on the Wednesdays. But the circle of 12 that they experienced was given live for the first time, not too long ago, in Sedona, Arizona. I'm going to repeat that so that the thousands who watch this broadcast can participate as well. Profound it can be if you participate. I want you to cross that bridge with me in just a moment, from this known dimensionality to the unknown dimensionality of your soul. A multi-dimensionality which encompasses so many things, but the main factor there is no time. Now, we've said this again. Time is a linear construct for you here. And physicists will agree with that and say there are dimensionalities that do not have that time construct. It can go faster, slower, or even suspend itself with different realities. In your soul, there is no construct at all, no time at all. It doesn't go slower or faster. It just isn't there. That means that everything that ever existed exists at the same time, and the potentials of what will be created are also there. Hard for you to imagine such a thing, but that's the beauty of your soul. I want you to prepare to cross that bridge and come someplace with me right now where something's going to happen you didn't expect. Take my hand. Let's cross the bridge together. Move across the bridge into that area, that energy which is your soul, and feel first of all the peace and the love where all problems drop away. This is an eternal space, dear ones. It represents you long after the problems are gone on the planet. Even long after the planet's gone, you're still here. It represents you before the planet was ever made. It represents you before you were ever a human. That's where you are, home. In this eternal place, dear ones, I want you to go into that theater in the round through that door, which we always go through, and I want you to take your place on that stage. Only the stage looks a lot different this time, a lot different. In front of the chair that you will sit on right now, that beautiful, comfortable chair, is a pit that is filled with embers that are burning. Embers that will consume anything that even goes near them. It's not too hot for you. In fact, you don't even feel heat because that's a linear sensation. But the perspective and the perception is this: whatever goes into those embers never comes out. In front of you, dear ones, you have seen before. It's a group of individuals numbering into the hundreds or thousands, depending upon how long you've lived, because every single one of those individuals is you. It's the expressions you have had on earth sitting in the chairs. Now, we have done something like this before, but not exactly this. How can this be? How can you see the many yous there? Kryon, there's only one of me as a human, and so on and so forth. This is a multidimensional place. Every single time you're a human, you have a specific, unique consciousness. They're all there. Is that hard for you to understand? That you can go back and look at yourself when you were not yourself, but the soul is the same? It's a collection of yous. It's the school that you've gone through. It's the yous that are there. Every single one sitting in the chair, and every single one is holding a gift. And some of those gifts, larger than others, some of them are small. They're all wrapped. And that, dear ones, is a metaphor of something they're about to give you. And you are sitting in the chair, and all is quiet. This is not a celebration. It's not a ritual. This is very different. One by one, as long as it takes, they're going to come up, and each one is going to give you something. What they're about to give you, dear ones, is what you don't need anymore. Carried around right now in your psyche, in your consciousness from past lives. The first one comes up onto the stage, and they look at you, and you look at them, and you realize you're looking at yourself from another lifetime. In some way you make a connection with every single one of them because you've lived it, and it's in your body now. It's your past life experience. And they take that gift and they don't give it to you, they throw it in the embers. And they make a statement, every single one. Depending upon the past life, they will say, here are the things that have bothered you from this life. Here's the time that you came in, and these things happened that were inappropriate and that bother you. Here are the things you experienced that you carry around that create the fears, and they toss it into the fire. And they put their hands into a prayer position and say, let it be gone forever in your life. In the audience, there are some very unusual looking individuals. One of them is 3 months old. The 3-month-old in this scenario comes on stage and looks at you and hands the gift and says, here is when we came in and died on purpose, by design, so your parents would do something they wouldn't have done otherwise. This is the sacrifice you made. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? And you carry that around with you. Here's when you didn't even make it. And they throw it into the embers and say, let this be gone. Any fear of death, of early that you would carry for any of your children or potential children, it's gone now. And the little one who's not even supposed to be able to walk, walks back into the stage. Here comes another one. Here comes the one that's obviously a big fella. Even if you're a woman, you can appreciate the big fella. He says, this is when you drowned, and it wasn't pleasant. And we were at sea. Do you remember that? We were at sea. It's why you don't like to go to the ocean anymore. Perhaps. Maybe this isn't you. And they have the gift in their hand, and they throw it in the fire and say, let the fear that this created in your life be gone forever. One by one, all of these past life experiences which may haunt you, keep you awake, affect your subconscious, keep you from getting well, having fears of death or relationships or even abundance. One by one, they come on stage and you connect and they throw them into the fire. Can you see this? This is the new energy of the planet. This is what you have earned. This is what you deserve. This is your lineage at this time. And the reason this is happening today is for you to get through this, so that when you get finished with all of this ember gift burning, you can get on with why you came here without the burdens that interrupt the things that really are you, your magnificence, what you have to give others, the love you have. Don't let the things that bother you stop from now on. They're gone, if you wish. They're gone. I want you to stay there and just picture, one by one, they keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. And anytime you wish or doubt this, you can return to this place and let them continue, for there may be 1,000 lives here for you. And every single one of them are still inside you, and in some way they affect you. But they don't have to any longer. This is the gift that is given to you this day in this circle of 12 that may be the most profound one you've ever received. I am Kryon. Stay, stay, and so it is.